You're listening to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. I'm Oscar Lorandi, News Director for KCSU. With me today is Green Party presidential candidate Dr. Jill Stein. With us also today is Editor-in-Chief of the Collegian, Erik, and Collegian reporter Gabriel Go. Dr. Stein, welcome to Colorado State University.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here.
So you graduated magna cum laude from Harvard, graduated from Harvard Medical School. You're a physician, you're an activist, and now you're a presidential candidate. What influenced you to go and be and want to be Commander-in-Chief of the United States?
You know, I guess you could say two things. One is that I'm really a mother on fire, and I have been active for a couple of decades, ever since I kind of discovered as a medical doctor that we are going drastically in the wrong direction. It's not only our health at risk, it is our planet, our survival, our climate. And I think we have a younger generation that's really been thrown under the bus on the cost of higher education, the lack of jobs, the need for canceling student debt. On so many issues as a mother, I feel what's going on is unacceptable. I'm trained and I practiced for decades as a medical doctor. Now I say I'm practicing political medicine because it's the mother of all illnesses. What I discovered as a doctor is that it's not as simple as giving people pills and sending them back out, because there are things that are really seriously threatening not only our health, but our very survival. Climate, endless and expanding wars, the nuclear arms race that has been started again. So you could say I got tricked into running for office a couple decades ago, and I discovered that our democracy is really hurting for more openness, for a political party that is not bought and paid for by the usual suspects, by Wall Street, by the fossil fuel corporations, by the war profiteers. And once those doors were open to me, I served in local office. But then I became involved in actually working to organize, to actually change the bigger system. And I'll say one of the most important things I think I ever was a part of was helping to organize campaign finance reform in my home state. So while I've mostly been outside of government, we've been able to organize as ordinary citizens to change our laws, our regulations, to improve our health and our democracy and our economy. We passed campaign finance reform as a referendum, and then the legislature in my home state in Massachusetts repealed it on a voice vote. They canceled public financing, and that was the Democratic Party that did that, and it made me a dedicated activist, understanding that we have to change the political system if we're gonna get out of here alive.
Sure. So then I guess I'll ask the question, going back to the student debt and education. You said you want to cancel the student debt. Could you go a little bit into maybe how you do that?
So, you know, we bailed out Wall Street, and people were very surprised to learn that it was about $17 trillion worth of money that was mobilized to bail out Wall Street. And Wall Street are the guys that basically crashed the economy in 2008 through predatory lending, through unethical bundling and sales of these very insubstantial loans. And we bailed them out, the guys who crashed the economy through their waste, fraud, and abuse. Now we have a generation of young people who are basically locked into student loan debt through no fault of their own, really the victims of this Wall Street crash and the victims of a loan system that made false promises. The promise was you work hard, you borrow the money, you get the degree, and there will be a good job on the other end. But for the vast majority, those good jobs are just not there because the economy has been tanked. So we're saying that contract has been torn up. So it's time to end the obligation of our young people. It's about $1.5 trillion worth of debt that we need to appropriate, but it is the right thing to do. It's small compared to the bailout we gave Wall Street. It's time to bail out a generation because it's not just your lives that depend on it. all of our lives depend on having a younger generation that can lead the way forward to reinvent our economy for the 21st century. And it's not just our economy, it's also the social struggles. It's the struggle for equality for the LGBTQ community. It's the struggle to end environmental racism and to create environmental justice. It is the struggle for the rights of immigrants, who are really the victims of global forces right now and predatory economic policies, who've been refugees for their lives, but who are being deported rather mercilessly right now. Leading the way on all of this, it's always the younger generation that does this. So if we are going to make progress, if we're going to dig our way out of the crises that we're in, we need to liberate a generation of young people who can actually lead the way forward.
And so do you think this would be done through reduction or outright removing the obligation to pay back these debts?
In my view, public higher education should be free because it's essential in order to survive in today's economy. Throughout the 20th century, we provided a high school degree for free because it was essential for economic security back then. But now it's not adequate for economic security, so it's just not fair. In my view, our younger generation is not there as a cash cow to be exploited by either government loans or private loans. Security should be provided through free public higher education. That applies going forward, and in my view, that applies going backwards. It's a small price to pay, and there are ways we can pay this, and there are a whole variety of ways. The point is, this has to be our priority. What is more important to invest in than the future of our younger generation?
Dr. Stein, I would like to ask on your experience running in prior elections in the state of Massachusetts, and as, well, you have ran as president in 2012, yet it appears that your only elected position is that of representative for the town of Lexington, Massachusetts. I would like to ask, how do you feel that this prepares you for the United States presidency?
Well, what I would say is that we're in a crisis situation right now. We've had some very well prepared candidates and prepared past presidents. But coming up through our conventional system of politics, that preparation involves taking a lot of campaign contributions, and it involves being schooled in a system where big money rules the day. And this isn't just like things that everyday people think. This is also documented in study after study that show that, in fact, it is the big money forces, it is the lobbyists, it is the major campaign contributors who have decided our healthcare policies, our war policies, our economic policies, this Trans-Pacific Partnership that the big money is trying to push through right now, which will undermine environmental protections, it will undermine worker protections, and it will actually undermine our very democracy because it creates a separate system of courts based on World Bank appointees who decide what laws we get to keep and which laws we don't. It's absolutely outrageous. In my view, we are in an all-out crisis mode right now, and we need to move away as fast as we can from this conventional system that creates very well prepared candidates, but what they're prepared to do is sell us down the creek towards war, towards offshoring of our jobs, towards a climate which is in all-out collapse right now and in a very desperate situation. We have seen all that the Democratic Party can do. You know, they are held up as the lesser of the two evils. But where did we get on climate? Actually, all of the above was far worse than drill baby drill in terms of massively escalating fossil fuel production. And at the rate we're going, they didn't save us. Even when they had 2 houses of Congress that were Democratic, we're not going to make it out of here alive. So we actually need people who have the freedom to represent everyday Americans, not just the fossil fuel industries, the Wall Street banks, and the war the war industry, I'm the only candidate in the race that does not accept money and is not corrupted by lobbyists, by corporations, and by super PACs. So what you see is what you get. My history of advocacy is what we're about, and this is what the American people are actually clamoring for. They have had it with this rigged economy, this rigged energy system, which is destroying us, and this rigged political system that keeps us locked in. People are ready for a voter revolt.
So you have also called for a temporary halt to foreclosures and evictions. First of all, I guess, how would you plan on going about this, and what kind of economic effects would you expect?
Well, we would like to see people stay in their homes. Right now, the banks have been extremely, what shall we say, unreasonable and uncompromising about throwing people out, and then selling those mortgages at current market value. So what we're saying is, let's sell those mortgages right now at current market value and allow the homeowners to stay in their homes. There's a green former mayor of Richmond, California, who actually began this policy of using eminent domain to seize mortgages that were underwater if the banks weren't willing to negotiate with their homeowners in order to keep people in their homes. So this is still being litigated in the courts now, but this is one way that we can help ensure that predatory foreclosures don't go forward, and that homeowners are enabled to repurchase their mortgages, to renegotiate them at current market values in order to keep them in their homes.
So then, would you expect that if elected president and if this policy does go into effect, would you expect during this period of foreclosures being banned that people would simply not pay mortgages or not pay rents, expecting to not be kicked out?
Well, let me tell you this. We're focused right now on what we call a Green New Deal, which is not so much looking at mortgages, it's actually looking at jobs. We want to ensure that people have the jobs that they need so that they have the income, which not only pays for things like their mortgages, but enables them to pay for the food that they need, the clothing that they need, and stimulates the economy by priming the pump from below. This is how we want to heal the whole economy. You're right. I mean, just keeping people in their homes in a predatory, housing system is not going to fix what ails us. That's why we're primarily focused right now on ending the economic crisis at the same time that we end the climate crisis. And we're calling for a Green New Deal, like the New Deal that got us out of the Great Depression, but in this case, it focuses on creating green jobs, green small businesses, green nonprofits and cooperatives at the community level to create the jobs in renewable energy, in sustainable agriculture, in public transportation, and in ecosystem restoration, so that we infuse the economy with the funding that it needs to create those jobs, which in turn transition us on an emergency basis to 100% clean renewable energy by 2030.
Now, Colorado State University is regarded as one of the most sustainable universities in the United States. How would you encourage other universities to adopt the same sustainable practices?
You're absolutely right, and kudos to you for leading the way. What we're calling for actually in the Green New Deal is shifting our subsidies from fossil fuel energy, from industrial agriculture, into sustainable practices at all levels of our economy, including at our colleges and universities. We're also calling for funding research and for a really broad research agenda into sustainable practices. So there would be not only, the proper sense of priorities, and having a president in the White House that actually believes in sustainability, that lives according to sustainable energy and food system and public transportation practices. we would have in the White House not simply a commander-in-chief, but an organizer-in-chief who would prioritize the kinds of things that are going on here at this university, as well as ensuring that our funding shifts from the unsustainable energy, food, transportation, et cetera, into those sustainable ways of doing things. And we would be, we'd be doing everything from calling you to the White House, maybe creating a system of awards and recognition for the campuses that are actually leading the way. So we would be patting you on the back in a very public way and encouraging others to follow in your footsteps.
Well, Dr. Stein, we want to thank you so much for your time today. 90.5 KCSU, thank you for your time, and so does Rocky Mountain Student Media.
Thank you, and I'll just say go to Jill2016.com or go to Dr. Jill Stein, and that's Dr. no period Jill Stein, to get on our social media and join the team. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Stein.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.